United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you this evening. Just ask your blessing over this meeting. We just ask you to give us the wisdom and courage that we will make the right decisions. We just praise you tonight, Lord, and we just thank you for all that you do for us. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. We will begin with roll call.
Foster.
Here.
Mondera.
Here.
Colby.
Here.
Peters.
Here.
Newkirk.
Here.
Crabtree.
Here.
Bach.
Here.
I'd like to welcome our new council people who are from the election, plus some familiar faces from last year. I think it's going to be a great year, and I appreciate your efforts. I appreciate your time and your commitment to the city of Jackson. Mayor, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Yes, welcome to the new council members. We also have some former council members that I'd like to recognize tonight. Debbie Biggs, if you would come forward, please. I'd like to give her this certificate of appreciation. And Debbie, welcome back. Let's turn and look this way. You want to flip the camera? This certificate of appreciation is a full recognition of your dedication and service. I hereby present Deborah Biggs with this certificate of appreciation for your work, fine work I might add, as a Jackson City Council member for the years 2020 and 2021. We appreciate your service.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
I'm just glad he said former council members instead of old council members.
Dan, call if you would come forward. Now this time I'm going to say old councilman, Dan.
That's right. I expect I'm the oldest ever served. I don't really know.
Because you always said, you just said, I just heard you say I'm 85 and I still got a good golf game.
Yeah. Yeah. It's as good as it's gonna get.
But anyway, we want to present you with this certificate of appreciation for your work as a Jackson City Council member for the years 2020 and 2021.
Thank you, Randy.
Yes, sir. We appreciate what you've done. You got anything you want to say? Go ahead, Dan.
Well, I would say something. You'll find out as time goes on that this is the best administration, including Mr. Reed, that's ever served the city of Jackson. And I sincerely believe that, and I hope you'll do so accordingly. Thank you.
And lastly, we have a certificate of appreciation for the late John Peters, also for the same reason, for his work as a Jackson City Council member for the years 2020 and 2021. Ryan, would you like to come forward for that, please?
Sure.
Appreciate his service to our city. So do I.
I think he said enough while he was here.
Okay, and lastly, Dan, I also just want to welcome our new council members. All but two of you are returning, and we are glad to have you back. But new this year, that wasn't here last year, is Mr. John Ondera, who had served previously as a city councilman, but didn't serve the last 2 years. He didn't run there at the end of 19, or during 19, I believe. So welcome back, John Ondera.
Thank you.
John's a local businessman. Him and his family live here in Jackson, have for a long time. Should bring a lot of good experience to council as a businessman. And then on the other side, we have H.D. Crabtree. He was appointed by the Republican caucus to to fill the seat of Debbie, actually, when she retired. HD is a local pharmacist with a local medical facility. Him and his family, he's raised his family here in Jackson too, and his experience there in the medical field and the business end of the medical field should be a big asset to our council too. So welcome, HD Herman Crabtree. Okay, thanks, Dan.
All right, council, at this time, we do have someone who has signed in to speak to us this evening. So is Mr. Gerald Entler. So Mr. Entler, if you would like to make your way to the microphone there, and we will, once you begin, we'll give you 3 minutes to speak, and so I'll turn the floor over to you.
Hello? Is it on?
Yep.
Okay. I recently learned there's a change on Bridge Street. And I live on the corner of Broad and Bridge Street. And I talked to Mr. Swackhammer Friday. And that creates a big problem for me. I bring a 38-foot camper in, and it's hard to bring it through the city streets and get it in there and back it in by my garage. And I've always come in at Bridge Street and turned. Why was this changed? The lights are no longer working there. There's stop sign and one way and all that now. What brought this change?
Typically we respond once you're done.
Oh, okay.
You only get 3 minutes. We don't
Okay,
wanna
I'm
take
sorry.
your time.
Okay. I don't know. I drew a little map up, you know, if people's not familiar with the area, but I can come up to that light, and it's been this way for years, but I can come up to that light. I can't go straight or barely left to go up the street to my house, but I can turn left, go down by Giovanni's. And that street there is busier than the street that I live on, especially late evenings. So I'm just trying to figure the reason for it, for something we can work out where I can get my camper in there. I can't even, my garage is also on Bridge Street. I can't even come out of my garage and go around to the front of my house with these changes. I have to circle all the way around the block. It affects everybody on the Bridge Street, the southwest part of Bridge Street, and West Street, because West Street's a one-way street. That's about all I have to say.
I'll take it. Is that okay, Dan?
Sure, go right ahead.
Since Mr. Swackhammer said he's already talked to him, at the risk of saying the same thing again, what happened, there was a traffic accident that took out one of those lights.
Right.
Completely destroyed it. And so without all 3 sets of traffic lights working in unison, none of them worked right. So
Understand that.
So that's why we bagged and put off the other ones. And it was brought to our attention that, you know, it'd be a good time to study the activity at that intersection, and maybe not having those lights might be better for the general flow
Yeah.
of traffic. And so that's where we're at right now.
Yeah.
We did what we needed to do to try to make it safe without the lights, and we're studying it, looking at it to determine what we'll do in the future.
I can live with the stop sign there, and but I need to be able to get in with my camper into my place.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we're studying the situation. We're taking input from you as well as anyone
Yeah.
else that wants to give it.
Well-
And somewhere down the road, if we can repair the lights and we decide that's what's best to do, that's what
Yeah.
we'll do. But we haven't determined that yet.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Entler. Next, on the agenda, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. Those minutes will be found in your packet, inside front cover. First, we'll look at the minutes from, I believe, December the 13th that were amended. So, is there objections or corrections to the minutes as presented to council? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept those minutes as presented. Mr. Newkirk, second by Mrs. Colby. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion is carried. Next, we'll look at the minutes from the December the 27th meeting. Are there any objections or corrections to those minutes as presented to council? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to accept those minutes as presented. Mr. Newkirk, is there a second? Ms. Colby, second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. The motion is carried. Next on our agenda, we have listed our committee reports. We have no reports for the start of this year, but I do want to announce those who have committed to chair these committees for us. Under Utilities, the chairman will be John Ondara. Under Budget and Finance, the chairperson will be Mrs. Marva Colby. On Police, Fire, and Traffic, the chairperson will be Brett Foster. And on Service, returning Chairman Ryan Peters. I thank you all for your willingness to serve. Next, we'll go into the auditor's report. Mr. Reed.
Okay, the only thing I have, there's 4 ordinance affecting our office and the city. The first 2 deal with closing out last year, and the second 2 deal with then and nows where the budget at the beginning of the year was not in place in their normal bills for the city. So I'll address those when we get to them.
Okay. All right. Questions for Mr. Reed? Thank you, Mr. Reed. Next, report from Mr. Kirby, City Attorney.
I don't have anything to report, but I would comment, you had asked about appointing President Pro Tem, and City Clerk and Council will need to vote on both of those today.
Go ahead.
And it can be done by motion and has to be adopted by 2/3.
Thank you, Mr. Kirby. We will address those issues in new business. Mr. Hinch, he gave us a report. I passed it out to you. He said he didn't really have a voice report, but he did want that report to be passed to you for your study. He said other than that, he didn't have anything this evening. Mayor's report, Mayor Evans.
Okay, my mayor's report tonight will be my annual report to council as advertised. It's a little long, but I promise it's full of really good, fun stuff. Again this year, I want to remind you guys, as well as myself, that when I campaigned for mayor, there was 3 things I said. 1, I wanted to see my hometown managed more efficiently, more productively, and more professionally. 2, I wanted city utility rates to be more competitive while still providing great service to our citizens. And 3, I wanted to clean up and fix up my hometown. These were my goals. This was my campaign. These are the reasons I ran for mayor. For the rest of this report, and it's long, anytime I say we or us, I want you all to know who I'm talking about. We or us is referring to our entire team of city staff. We're about 80 strong, and I'm just the mayor. I rarely make decisions by myself. I rely heavily on my staff when making decisions. Everyone at this table is also part of our team. And the more we all work together, the better Jackson becomes. How do we make our city run more efficiently, more productively, and more professionally? It really is all about the people. We're fortunate to have a really good staff in both management and the workforce here in Jackson. And many of our people are just truly outstanding. We continue working to raise expectations for not only our existing people, but to ensure that new employees are the best of the best and are chosen for the right reasons. We continue working to reorganize and modify our staffing needs to meet today's needs as efficiently as possible. We continue to working to upgrade job descriptions, policies, procedures. Many of these things are very much outdated. Once again, utility rates were not raised in the city of Jackson in 2021. Applause, please. Obviously, with rising costs and the increased rate of inflation, we won't be able to hold the rates flat forever. But the rate cuts that we've previously made and the lack of new increases has made our city utility rates much more competitive and in line with other area providers. In February of last year, we increased our efforts to clean up and fix up our town by hiring a part-time code enforcement officer, and it's made a huge difference. In the last year, code enforcement has dealt with over 240 cases of high weeds and grass, over 100 cases of litter and trash, 57 cases of unsafe buildings, and 10 actual full building demolitions. So halfway through my first term as mayor, these things continue to be my goals for our city, and I'm proud that we're making progress in all these areas. A year ago, in my annual report, I stated, and I made the statement, the city income tax revenue is going to change Jackson, and it already has. Tax provided us over $2 million revenue in 2021. With this revenue, we paved almost 5 miles of 13 different streets, and every penny of that paving was with income tax revenue. We also partnered with ODOT and paved State Route 139 and State Route 93 south of town. The income tax allowed us to budget for $1 million worth of additional infrastructure work for 22, most of which will be street paving and related work. Also, the city and ODOT plan this year to resurface State Route 93 all the way through town, State Route 788, which is Athens Street, and East Broadway Street. Our plan is to repair and repave every street in town. That's about 52 miles of streets, plus the parks, the parking lots, and the access roads. It may take 10 years to get them all, and by that time it will be time to start over. Without the income tax, these improvements would not have been possible. The income tax also provides for about half of our $2 million plus police budget. We're very excited about getting our police staffing numbers back up to where we think they need to be, and plan to complete that by the end of this year. We've initiated several key projects in 21, including technology upgrades and infrastructure improvements. In May of last year, we began a massive GIS mapping project. The goal of this task is to capture GPS points and data for all city utilities. This includes water lines, sewer lines, manholes, valves, meters, fire hydrants, storm sewers, electric service lines, poles, transformers, and so forth. Having this information readily available on a computer screen, whether it's in the office or in the field, will tremendously increase efficiency for service work and emergency repairs. It will also make accurate information readily available for prospective customers, for grant applications, for maintenance records, and so forth. This project is long overdue, and it's taking the city of Jackson into the 21st century in utility mapping, and moving away from the old, antiquated, inadequate, or non-existent paper maps. The recent water break on East Broadway Street reinforced the need for these records. We had very little accurate information excuse me. We had very little accurate information regarding the size of the line, where the shutoff valves were, where related service line tie-ins were. For over 24 hours, we didn't have the knowledge required to shut that 12-inch water main off unless we shut down the entire city water system. In fact, our main source of information that day, during that break, that day, that night, and the next day, I should say, during that break, was what long-time city employees remembered or had been previously told. In addition to these mapping improvements, other areas saw technology upgrades in 21. The Utility Billing Office can now allow online and text viewing and paying of utility bills. Technology upgrades in the Auditor's Office allow for more efficient processes and a trend toward more paperless transactions and records. We've upgraded the equipment in this room, and now we stream these meetings on YouTube at a much higher quality than they could be seen before. Providing reliable and efficient water distribution and wastewater collection service for the community continues to be a top priority for this administration. Water line breaks are common due to the age of our line. In fact, we've had approximately 8 to 10 water breaks already this year. We even have one right now as we sit here. We also have a lot of infiltration of rainwater into the old sewer lines. It causes us to treat many times the normal amount of sewer during a rain event, and that's costly. For this reason, we've identified 6 critical infrastructure projects to address the aging water and wastewater lines. And we're going to need to continue these types of projects every year from now on. 3 of our current projects are fully or partially funded, including our Mill Street area sewer extension project, our Mitchell to Wood sewer replacement project, and our main trunk line. It's a lining project of one of our main sewer lines. We were awarded $1.75 million in grant funding in 21 and have several grants still pending. We continue working to identify and prioritize repair and replacement projects. We spend a tremendous amount of time seeking outside funding for these projects. Each of the city's departments saw successes in 21 and plan continued improvements in 22. Our Street and Alley Services Department continue repairing and replacing curbs and sidewalks, and we'll be back at it as soon as the weather allows. This is all in addition to what used to be their regular work of cleaning and repairing streets, trash collection, taking care of our parks, mowing our parks, etc. And this is the crew that's always ready and willing to work all hours of the night if necessary to make our streets safe from snow and ice. We increased the cemetery budget and plan increased staffing this spring to better keep up with the massive task of keeping that 62 acres mowed and looking nice. Most of you don't realize that our budget to run that cemetery is over $400,000 a year, more than the cemetery levy brings in. We also paved about 1.2 miles of cemetery streets and plan to pave more of them this year. We archived all the old cemetery records last year. That's 27 of those huge books of old handwritten records. And we began planning a computerized plot management system. We began efforts in 21 at Council's request to bring the cemetery more in compliance with existing rules and regulations. And we will continue those efforts this year, focusing on plots where a violation causes maintenance issues. However, for those who visit the cemetery regularly and take really good care of their own plots or those plots of their loved ones, If your decorations are not causing us problems, we're going to show some compassion and allow you some space to grieve and to heal. Our electric department continues to provide incredibly reliable electric service to our customers and respond very quickly to outages. In addition, they completed in-house upgrades at our Lick substation and a couple of our primary feeder lines. Our in-house tree trimmers allow us to avoid the cost of outside contractors to keep our main lines clear, and also allow us efficiently to address our other tree trimming needs. At our water and wastewater plants, we've cut down on the use of outside contractors and perform almost all maintenance in-house now, even though we've reduced staff and reduced overtime costs. We've updated technology for communications at our 5 water booster stations and at our 16 wastewater lift stations. These are the kind of efficiency improvements that make me proud. The COVID-19 pandemic continued throughout 21. And caused us some very sad times in the city. Early in February, Rob Norman from our utility office lost his battle with COVID. Rob was that Mr. Nice Guy personality that just made everyone love him. I mean, even when he was there to shut off their utilities. Then on August 9th, Councilman John Peters passed away. John was like a full-time councilman. He did his research. He usually knew what he was talking about. And John worked hard to make sure things were done the way they were supposed to be done. Less than 2 weeks later, on August 18th, we lost our longtime deputy auditor, Wendy Sexton. Wendy pretty much stayed behind the scenes. Brett gets all the photo ops. But Wendy was the heart and soul of our auditor's office. All 3 of these individuals were outstanding in their role with the city, and each of them continue to be sorely missed. 2021 was a busy year in the city of Jackson, and it makes the time fly by. It's hard to believe that I've been your mayor for 2 years already. It has taken me this long to realize that all the people who tried to talk me out of running for mayor were right. No, I'm kidding. I love being your mayor. It's challenging, it's rewarding, and at times it's maddening. 2021 was a good year for the city of Jackson. It takes all of us working together to make it happen. And I thank each of you for your role in making it work. 2022 is going to be even better. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Schrockhammer?
I can't follow that. I do have a couple items I'll talk about as they come up later in the meeting and during new business. I'm not going to take any time at this time to bring anything forward.
Okay. Questions for Mr. Schrockhammer? Hearing none, then we'll move on into the ordinances and resolutions. Well, one thing before we move into that, in your packet also, I just want to point out there was a cemetery report from Fairmont Cemetery that you may want to look at and study over for your knowledge. So we'll begin in the ordinance and resolution portion, starting with our ordinance. The first ordinance is ordinance 77-21, and this will be second reading. Mr. Kuhn?
An ordinance repealing and amending the City of Jackson's codified ordinance section 557.01 governing weed control.
Discussion. Any further action to be taken on ordinance 77-21? Hearing none, this constitutes the second reading of ordinance 7721. Next, for third reading, would be ordinance 7821. Ms. Kuhn?
An ordinance creating the positions of Maintenance Mechanic 2 and Chief Maintenance Mechanic and establishing salary and declaring an emergency.
Discussion. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Foster.
Yes.
Andera.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk.
Yes.
Crabtree.
Yes.
Bach.
Yes.
Ordinance 7821 is duly adopted. Next, we'll move on to ordinance 0122 on first reading. Ms. Kuhn?
An ordinance authorizing the Service and Safety Director to dispose of obsolete fire department gear to Kentucky fire departments in need of such gear due to widespread damage in Kentucky as a result of tornadoes in December 2021 and declaring an emergency.
Can I get a motion to adopt ordinance 0122 as presented to council?
So moved.
Mr. Peters? Second by Mr. Foster. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Discussion.
If I may?
Mr. Schweikhammer?
Yes. As we all know, late last year, there was the devastating storms that came out of the south up through Kentucky. And one of the things that clearly became available was the lack of emergency response equipment of any type to be made available. So there was a call that went out to fire departments that may have had aged out equipment that was still had life in it. A lot of times we're replacing stuff that is of very good quality yet, but it's only guaranteed for so many years and therefore aged out and gets replaced. What this does is allow us, there's still a need. This allows us to take some of the aged out stuff that we have that would end up in this spring's city auction and be able to use it to help these folks out or other like organizations. So that's what we're asking you to consider. And if you are interested, I would like for you to consider approving it this evening.
What other discussion?
Mr. President,
Mr. Peters?
when it says expired, I mean, is that, is it fit to use or?
Yeah, the quality, we're not sending anything that would endanger anybody. A lot, for example, Dave Channel's fire gear, he uses himself as an example because of his role and stuff in the fire department. It's very good quality, but after so many years, it's supposed to be replaced. We would never take a risk in getting anybody injured, and we would clearly identify anything that's sent down there to what it was.
Mr. President, I move to suspend the rules. The longer we wait, the longer it will take these folks to receive this equipment. I just don't see any issue with carrying it on any further, so that's.
Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. Newkirk. Roll call, please.
Foster.
Yes.
Andera.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk.
Yes.
Crabtree.
Yes.
Bach.
Yes.
Discussion. Ms. Kuhn?
Foster.
Yes.
Andera.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk.
Yes.
Crabtree.
Yes.
Bach.
Yes.
Ordinance 0122 is duly adopted. Moving on to ordinance 0222, first reading. Ms. Kuhn?
An ordinance approving appropriations in Water Utility Office for salaries and wages and PERS and declaring an emergency.
Can I get a motion to adopt ordinance 0222 as presented to council? Mr. Foster, is there a second? Second by Mr. Andera. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Discussion. Mr. Reed?
Okay, what this does, we, at the end of last year, like the mayor was mentioning, there's a lot of shakeup in our office. A lot of things that were kept track of by Ms. Sexton. There wasn't anybody what this does is balance our books. I've talked to the state, I've talked to other auditors. They said this is what we should proceed to do for this ordinance and the following. Is after the fact, but it puts things right in the accounts for 21. I will still answer for everything that's done, but this is the way it should be handled.
Further discussion?
And if we can get this done, excuse me, I would appreciate the spending on these two, both these ordinances.
Other discussion?
A motion to suspend?
Motion to suspend by Mr. Andera, second by Mr. Foster. Roll call, please.
Foster.
Yes.
Andera.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk.
Yes.
Crabtree.
Yes.
Pop.
Yes.
Further discussion? Ms. Coon?
Foster.
Yes.
Andera.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk.
Yes.
Crabtree. Pop.
Ordinance 0222 is duly adopted. Next, we will look at ordinance 0322 on first reading. Ms. Coon?
An ordinance approving appropriations in the Sewer Utility Office Fund for salaries and wages and PERS and Medicare and declaring an emergency.
Can I have a motion to adopt ordinance 0322 as presented to council? Ms. Colby, is there a second? Mr. Newkirk, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Discussion. Read.
Same thing. This is, these were bills incurred by the city that had to be paid, but the appropriations weren't put in place in a timely manner, so that's why it's put in now. And that's, like I say, that was by talking to auditors what we should be doing, and this was our recommendation.
I move to suspend the rules, today.
Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. Newkirk to suspend the rules. Ms. Coon?
Foster.
Yes.
Andera.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk.
Yes.
Crabtree. Pop.
Yes.
Further discussion? Ms. Coon?
Foster.
Yes.
Andera.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk.
Yes.
Crabtree. Pop.
Ordinance 0322 is duly adopted. Next, we will look at ordinance 0422, first reading. Ms. Coon?
Ordinance repealing the City of Jackson's codified ordinance sections 305.03, 305.04, and 305.05 governing traffic control and declaring an emergency.
Can I get a motion to adopt ordinance 0422 as presented to council? Mr. Peters, second. Ms. Colby, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Discussion. Mr. Swackhammer.
Yes. The recent incident that we had where the electric, or where the pole was hit and that light was knocked off, and we're in a situation right now, a temporary situation, brought to light that there had been several of these intersections, lights, and so forth that actually was put in here anywhere from the 50s through the 70s by an ordinance saying that you're supposed to have one there. And a lot of them aren't pertinent anymore. You'll notice that some of them are associated with the Kensington School, which is no longer there. What we're trying to do is look at today's environment and evaluate it. And if we feel we're going to need lights and stop signs, we're going to have lights and stop signs. We just don't want to be tied by ordinance to have to do something that maybe was appropriate 30, 40, 50 years ago, but isn't pertinent in today's environment. So it's not like we're trying to do away with all these. We just want the freedom to evaluate them in their current state in today's world. And I'm not asking for the emergency clause to be invoked. I would like to let the public be aware of this. The public, just like the gentleman tonight, the gentleman spoke, you know, I actually told him tonight would be a great time to come speak so we can hear from anybody and everybody to where intersections are that might be a concern that are on this list. But again, this isn't to do away with proper traffic control. It's to give us the freedom to do what should be done without having to go through ordinances all the time.
Any discussion?
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
I understand what you're saying, that, you know, things need to be updated, but wiping the entire section, let's just fast forward and say we do this, and 20 years from now, we forgot about it, like they've forgotten about a lot of things over time here, and your great-grandson's the mayor of Jackson, and he's a loose cannon and just starts changing these things without any input from anyone. Because this gives you free reign to do what you want to do at any time. There are checks and balances, that's why we're here. I personally don't agree with just wiping it all out. I think it needs to be reviewed and removed or update the ones that need to be taken out. I just don't like wiping the whole thing out, but that's just me. Thank you.
If I may respond?
Yes.
Yeah. I guess, Mr. Peters, what I would say is if you look at the ones that are in here, there are more that are not in here than are in here in today's environment that have been added. So, and some that I think are much more critical than the ones that are even here that was never put in by ordinance because things changed. So yes, those checks and balances need to be in place, but just like the incident that we had, you know, if we hadn't went back and checked to see, okay, by ordinance it says you need to put a traffic light back up. So is that what we need to do, or do we need to evaluate it, as the mayor mentioned, and say, is there another way that keeps the flow of traffic going, that maybe we can work something out that helps the homeowners too? I think there has to be a way to, either you're going to increase the volume of these that are listed here, to also include the critical ones that are not on here, or we take them out and we try to operate on a day-to-day basis.
Mr. President? Okay, so what happens day one? I mean, are you gonna make a new list? Are you evaluating all of them, or are you gonna start fresh and then present something back where it's permanent, or no?
Well, the goal was to, first of all, if we can do away with this, is just start looking at them. You know, we've talked about for over a year at Pearl and at Broad, how much those stop lines disrupt traffic more than help traffic a lot of times, because of the way they're not on a trip switch, they're on just a regular, you know, cycle and stuff, and you're sitting there, nobody's coming either direction, and you got traffic backing up behind you. So we're not trying to make traffic issues, we're trying to take today's world and bring traffic flow a little bit better. But like I said, if you know, to me, there are still several that's not on here that are much more critical than some of these that are on here.
Fair enough.
Other discussion, Mr. Onder.
I feel like, I feel like we got way too many traffic lights in this town. I think all three of the traffic lights on State Street could be eliminated. The one at High Street, the one at Carroll Avenue. To me, I don't see any purpose for those at all. The one you mentioned on Broad, yeah, I think this is a good thing. I'm not exactly sure if this is the proper way to go about it, but I kind of think it is. But not, you know, if we're going to evaluate it and now take a reading on it and don't take any other action on it till we see what, how it's going to go, but I think we got too many traffic lights.
What brought all this up was that accident that took out that light on, got us talking about it. And as David mentioned, we had previously talked about other lights. We think there's lights like John says, that we don't need. That has just been there for a reason. The reason went away and the light stayed. But in researching that, that's when Mr. Swackhammer realized that, well, there's ordinances that tell us on a few of them where they're supposed to be and where they're supposed to be right turns and not. But really, very few of them in the big picture are in this ordinance. So in discussions with our attorney Kirby, he said it doesn't need to be an ordinance. So that's why we decided, well, then we just won't have it there. And that's where we're at. That's where we're at. If council don't want to do it, I don't have a problem with that. If they want to try to add the other ones to it, and I have a problem with that. But it's just something that by law is not required to be done in ordinance. It's usually done by traffic studies or safety studies or by the safety director determination or by public opinion, whatever, usually not necessarily by ordinance.
Mr. President, Mr. Kirby makes a very valid point that February 12th, 1962, in section 305.01, there's already authority of the service director to make any of these changes. So this seems like it's one of those ones where it just kept getting adding on and adding on and adding on, and here it's 100 years later. And
Yep, but doing that when there's an ordinance that says where they're supposed to be seemed kind of
right, I understand, but where I'm coming from is I would like to see, I agree with Mr. Ondera, there are too many lights, but I would like to see somewhere in writing what's one way, what's not. I had a car come head on right here at this new one way this morning. I was sitting there at the stop sign and the car went right up the wrong way on the one way. So I know you do your best to do that, but I still think that it needs to be printed somewhere where a normal guy can say, what the heck's going on this street? And I can read it. So that's my concern mostly, is that it stays somewhere in print, directions, stoplights, things of that nature. So that was my point.
Thank you, Mr. Peters. Other comments, discussion?
Mr. Folks, concerning State Street and Bridge Street, I recognize the situation and how it all came about. I do find it a little precarious there, I guess, that, you know, there was a change of traffic flow that really didn't jump out at you. I mean, the first time I came up upon it and saw it, I really wasn't sure what was going on. I rarely would ever go straight through onto Bridge Street past the old gas station, but I always would turn on but I do find it to be like, maybe there ought to be a sign up there that says traffic pattern change or something to, you know, to notify people. So that's my only thing. I think it's a good thing.
Other discussion? Is there any further action to be taken on ordinance 0422? Hearing none, this constitutes first reading of ordinance 0422. Next, we'll consider ordinance 0522 on first reading. Ms. Coon?
An ordinance repealing and amending the City of Jackson's codified ordinance sections 945.07 and 945.072 governing franchise requirements for transport of garbage, rubbish, or other waste material, and declaring an emergency.
Can I get a motion to adopt ordinance 0522 as presented to council?
So moved.
Peters, is there a second? Mr. Newkirk? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Mr. Swackhammer?
Yes. This ordinance amendment change came out of a conversation that was had here in council mid last year, and council asked the administration to look at what could be done to have more franchisees involved in the containers for rubbish, for trash, with, you know, maybe some lower level set. So we took a look at the current quantities that are coming in or out of the city through our current franchisee. We also looked at where we thought there may have been some opportunities. you know, as a starting point, these numbers seem right, but until we have other people coming in that are actually active in this, it's going to take a year or two to see how many, you know, if there's one or two other small individual players that want to participate now that we've set some other numbers. So we know that, you know, Rumpke is the primary or the only franchisee at this time. We, out of a professional courtesy, we've had a conversation with them, didn't give them any of the details, but the feeling is there that they have no concern over these changes and stuff, but we also believe that there's also a chance to open it up for a couple of the smaller players that have voiced their concern mid last year to get into the ball game.
Other discussion? Yes.
Just on the new E, I noticed that you added E, struck E, changed it to F, but on the new E, where it would be evaluated, is that gonna be really time consuming for you? Is that gonna cause more workload in the admin office? Is that, like, what do you see that looking like?
Yeah, if, in details here, it says that anybody that doesn't buy the $10,000 one, that doesn't have to be monitored. They have to report on a quarterly basis in yards. Yards is the best way to do it versus tonnage and stuff. So that is nothing more than they're taking their franchisee lease and then every quarter taking their numbers that they're conveying to us. And it would be off of the load tickets, you know, when they go to dump the load tickets and stuff. You know, at the end of the year, if they thought they was only going to do a couple thousand yards and they were over that, closer to the 5,000, we'll make whole at that time before we issue the new one. It's an entry place. Is it perfect? We just needed some place to put a stake in the ground to begin and give other you know, franchisees an opportunity.
Other discussion? Any further action to be taken on ordinance 0522? Hearing none, this constitutes the first reading of ordinance 0522. Next, we'll step into our resolutions for the evening. I believe we have 4. We'll begin with resolution 0122 on first reading. Ms. Kuhn?
Resolution authorizing the Director of Public Service and Safety to file an application with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources for paddling enhancement grant financial assistance for public boating access and declaring an emergency.
Can I get a motion to adopt resolution 0122? Mr. Foster, second by Ms. Colby. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Discussion, Mr. Swackhammer.
Yes, this actually came out of a discussion that, well, Dan's left, that Dan had last year and stuff that he gave us. The windows just opened back up. It was a chance for out to Hammertown to be able to get some funding for some improvements out there using this revenue source and stuff. So that's what we're trying to do. Tracy helped me find all the details on it. And I believe, based on timeline and allowing you enough time to move forward, we need to go ahead and get that passed tonight. Is that not correct, Tracy? Thank you.
Other discussion?
Mr. President, I move to suspend the rules to file in a timely manner.
Second.
Second by Mr. Foster. Roll call, please.
Foster.
Yes.
Mondera.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk.
Yes.
Crabtree.
Yes.
Bach.
Yes.
Other discussion? Ms. Kuhn?
Foster.
Yes.
Mondera.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk.
Yes.
Crabtree.
Yes.
Bach.
Yes.
Resolution 0122 is duly adopted. Next, we'll look at resolution 0222, first reading. Ms. Kuhn?
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to file an application to the State of Ohio Fire Marshal for funding for the purchase of equipment for the Jackson Fire Department and declaring an emergency.
Have a motion to accept, or to adopt Resolution 0222 as presented to council. Mr. Bob? Second by Mr. Foster. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Discussion, Mr. Splotkin.
Yes, this is for a $15,000 grant with no match to be used by the fire department. We do have a little bit of time. It's open clear through the 28th of February. So just ask you keep that time frame in mind.
Other discussion?
I'd make a motion to suspend.
John makes a motion to suspend the rules. Second by Mr. Foster. Ms. Coon?
Foster.
Yes.
Bondera.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk.
Yes.
Crabtree.
Yes.
Bach.
Yes.
Other discussion? Ms. Coon?
Foster.
Yes.
Bondera.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk.
Yes.
Crabtree.
Yes.
Bach.
Yes.
Resolution 0222 is duly adopted. Next, we have Resolution 0322, first reading. Ms. Coon?
A resolution authorizing expenditure of funds for payment to Rumpke Consolidated Companies Incorporated pursuant to a then and now certificate in the amount of $14,530.47 and declaring an emergency.
Can I get a motion to adopt Resolution 0322 as presented to council this evening? Mr. Rondero, is there a second? Ms. Colby, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Mr. Reed?
Okay, as far as then and now, what this amounts to, there was only actually about 3 days we were down for the books this year, and this came in as one of them. It's a bill that the city has. With finding out the new use of the software we're doing this year, I would look for next year, hopefully never to have that announced again at the end of the year. That's a broad statement, but it's always been a thing. We usually have 10 or 15 of these at the end of the year. This year we had very, very few. And going forward, I'm hoping that we will be able to alleviate all of them by just budgeting in the previous year and keeping the POs. So, but if we can get this passed, this is a bill, and then also the next one is two that came in, actually, the next one came in like the fifth week. Go ahead, go for this one first.
Further discussion?
Mr. President, I just moved that we suspend the rules so we can pay Rumpke the money that we owe him here.
Motion by Mr. Peters to suspend the rules, second by Mr. Newkirk. Roll call, please.
Foster.
Yes.
Bondera.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk.
Yes.
Crabtree. Bach.
Yes.
Further discussion? Ms. Coon?
Foster.
Yes.
Bondera.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk.
Yes.
Crabtree. Bach.
Yes.
Resolution 0322 is duly adopted. Our final resolution for the evening is Resolution 0422, first reading. Ms. Coon?
A resolution authorizing expenditure of funds for payment to Ohio Public Works Commission pursuant to a then and now certificate in the amount of $13,552.13 and declaring an emergency.
Can I have a motion to adopt Resolution 0422 as presented to council? Mr. Rondero, is there a second? Mr. Bob? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Discussion, Mr. Reed.
Same situation. This one actually comes in clear in November. We got a bill, but we don't have anything in place for the budget, so even if we'd have, the first day the budget was in place done it, we wouldn't have been able to meet the criteria to have the purchase order in place. So like I say, looking next year, we're planning to have all POs in place for the following year that we can pay out of this year, so we'll be using prior years.
Further discussion? Have a motion to suspend the rules?
So moved.
Mr. Rondero, is there a second? Ms. Crabtree? All those in favor? No, I'm sorry. Roll call, please.
Foster.
Yes.
Bondera.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk.
Yes.
Crabtree.
Yes.
Bach.
Yes.
Further discussion? Ms. Coon?
Foster.
Yes.
Bondera.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk.
Yes.
Crabtree.
Yes.
Bach.
Yes.
Resolution 0422 is duly adopted. Next, we'll go into our correspondence. We had one that was emailed to each of you this afternoon, but we've come to find out we believe that it was the wrong municipality. It was sent to on some senior housing, so please disregard. I don't have anything to you, Ms. Coon.
The new council member training, do you guys have that in your folders? Yes. We started to go to this 2 years ago for all of the new members, and it was canceled because of COVID. So this is just an opportunity for new or even council members that have been here for a while can go to this. So if you're interested, just let me know.
Thank you, Ms. Coon. Next, we'll go to old business. Yeah, I didn't. Want to go? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I also put in your folders about the financial disclosure that you must fill out online or print it out and mail it in. I think it's May 16th is the deadline for everybody except HD. He only had 15 days, but he did it yesterday, so it's good.
Thank you, Ms. Coon. So we'll go to old business. The only thing that I have in old business is I spoke to Mr. Kirby in a previous meeting. I think it was December the 27th. We had Mr. Berridge, who was in, and council at that point asked Mr. Kirby to write a letter on behalf of council commending him and what his project. So I just wanted to touch base with you to see where we are with that.
So I did, that's something that came up at the last meeting for a resolution in support of that. The difficulty was I've not been able to find out exactly what the project is or a name of it. And I spoke with the administration as well. And I think that's something somebody in the county is looking to get more detail on. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, the reason Mr. Berridge came on the 27th to speak to council was because I'd asked some of the similar questions, and he wasn't able to produce anything for me, so he wanted to come and talk to council. So I don't have anything to give to Mr. Kirby, and right now I haven't been able to get Mr. Berridge to provide anything from the individuals with whom he says he's working with the name of a project, what the project consists of. So I'm glad this topic came back up, not trying to sway one way or another, but I don't have anything to give you to say what you're in support of.
So if anyone has, because it is council's resolution, if anyone has any language or believe that we know what the project is, email that to me, and I can certainly include it in a proposed resolution. So far, I haven't been able to find any detail, even a name of it.
Thank you, Mr. Kirby. Any other old business?
Can I ask a few questions about Board of Control? Board of Control, January 4th, item 2, American Electric Power for training. I know this came up previously. Last council passed a resolution to work with AMP for lineman training, and is that falling in line with this, or can someone let me know?
I'll take that, Mr. Peters. We have found that the AMP training compared to the AEP training is like comparing apples to oranges. And we do not feel that the AMP training that they're offering is the type of inequality of individuals that we want to put out in the city. So we have elected to go with the AEP training.
Fair enough. I've got a couple more, if that's okay. Same date, number 15, West Banco for supplies, parts, etc. for electric to be taken from item number $5,000. Just kind of confused what sort of electric supplies West Banco would be providing.
Wes, we have one credit card that our office controls, so they can order online, but they still go through and are approved by our office before so we have a credit card. If they have parts that they can get cheaper, they can order. They have to have a credit card or a PO in place to West Banco to pay for it though.
Makes sense. Good answer. Moving on to January 14th, number 3, 16.5 million for electricity. Is that for the whole, are we paid for the whole year, or is that just get us started? For our electricity.
That should be for the whole year.
Yeah, Brett's gonna take,
I'll
yeah,
take it again.
you wanted to.
That is the whole year's estimated, but that's a PO in place for a contracted entity, and that's a PO in place that they'll pay monthly electric bill out of, yes.
And then lastly is, maybe you don't know the answer, and is on January 21st, number 4 was for Kronos, a payment to Kronos. My current employer used to use Kronos, but it doesn't exist anymore because you can't access it. So do we use that as
Kronos is our payroll system.
so what are we doing in place of no Kronos?
We do have Kronos still. Kronos was hacked.
Yeah.
Ours is not, our version has not been hacked. We still have Kronos that we use. It has been purchased now, I believe it's called UKG.
Right.
That is over it. But the Kronos system that we have is still operational.
Answered all my questions. Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you, Mr. Peters.
Sure.
Any other new business to be brought before council?
New
Or old
business?
business, I should say. Hearing none, I don't believe we have anyone else scheduled to speak with us this evening. So we will move into new business, and first thing I would like to bring up to council, we have a few items myself, is to discuss this, the signed-in visitors to speak, where it is located in the agenda. I would like to bring before council in an ordinance 1120, the order of our agenda was set by an ordinance. I think Mr. Peters has a copy of it there. So what I would like to do is I would like to have a motion to amend ordinance 1120 to move, it says signed in visitors to speak, to the visitors area, so that those who would wish to come to speak at council could do so early and not be held back till late, because in the past, those who had announced themselves before meeting, could speak at the top, and those who showed up at the meeting to sign in sometimes would speak at the bottom. But this way, all parties who wish to speak would speak after roll call and the recognition of visitors. So I would entertain a motion to do so, to amend ordinance 1120 to move this portion of the agenda to there.
I'll move to move it to the top, because we're penalizing the people who show up in person on the day of, and sometimes
I'll second that.
our meetings are a little winded, so.
Absolutely. So you don't want to stay late. So, Mr. Peters, second by Mr. Andera. All those in favor, discussion by anyone. Mr. Andera.
Why do we have 2 lines for the visitors?
We won't if this goes through.
After this.
We won't.
Well, I'm saying, I don't know, I don't see why we have to have a,
That was set by council when you were on council, John.
no, it wasn't. I would never have voted for that. Look it up, Cindy, I'm sure I abstained from voting.
So I mean, the idea behind it, because we did discuss it last year, 2 years ago, is that visitors and guests, someone who would be recognized or whatever, they knew in advance, you don't know who's gonna show up, so
Right.
try to keep it flowing, so.
Kind of plain.
But obviously, it doesn't work.
Yeah, I see no need for two spots there, so.
So, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion is carried. Ms. Kuhn, you'll make that adjustment on our next meeting. Next, I will entertain a motion to nominate Mr. Ryan Peters as President Pro Tem for this next term. Basically, what that entails is if yours truly cannot be here at the meeting to chair the meeting, Mr. Peters would take over those duties. So could I have a motion for Ryan? Mr. Andera, is there a second? Mr. Newkirk? Discussion?
Thanks.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Next, I need to have a motion to name our clerk for the next 2-year term. So is there a motion for their clerk?
I move to name the clerk Cindy Coon for 2 more years.
Is there
I'll
a
second that.
Second by Mr. Ondera. Is there any other nominations? Hearing none, is there a discussion?
I would like to say, as having worked with her previously and working with her now, that she does a fantastic job and glad to have her.
Other discussion? I'll entertain, we'll vote for Ms. Kuhn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Congratulations, Ms. Kuhn. And I'm gonna take a break for just a second, and I'm gonna let Mayor Evans have some new appointees he would like to bring before council.
Yes, I'd like to have council make the following appointments, and I think you could probably do it all in one motion. I'd like to appoint Marva Colby to the David Brooks Jones Trust Committee. I'd like to appoint John Ondera to the Zoning Board of Appeals. I'd like to appoint Harold Newkirk to the Tree Commission that we are bringing back. And I would like to have Ryan appointed to the Planning Commission.
Is there a
And
motion?
all of these people have agreed to take these positions, by the way. None of this should have been a shock,
No, Mark.
although that would have been more fun.
Can we have a motion to accept those nominations by Mayor Evans?
So moved.
Mr. Peters, is there a second? Mr. Crabtree, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. And finally, the last thing that I have in new business is I have spoken to you by email, and I've spoken with Ryan in the past. I've spoken with Joe about this, is that we operate committee of the whole. In the past, for those who are coming on board, HD, John, you're familiar with it, we have had numerous committees which are listed above, and there would be a group of 3 or 4 who are council people that would serve on each committee. I've researched this, and Ryan has actually brought it to me in, I believe, October. We had this discussion, and what this would be a functioning committee with a committee chairman, but the committee itself would be all of those committee members functioning as the committee. So we can come and we can discuss as a committee all things that are happening within the city. I think it's a good thing. I think it will keep us all informed, and when we come to meetings, we'll have a better understanding about what we're talking about in regard to needs for the city. So I am asking for this motion that we would operate as a committee of the whole.
Could we discuss it further? So, 'cause
Yes, we will. If we can get a motion, then we'll discuss.
I'll
No,
move
it's not on the committee, but
to
what he's saying is to have
adopt
everybody
committee as a
in the
whole,
meeting.
just so we can discuss.
Obviously, the committee
I
chair
have a
would
motion. Is
run-
there a second?
Committee chair would run the meeting.
Mr. Newkirk, second. Discussion.
So the object was, we spent a lot of time last term in committee. We would have a committee meeting, sometimes they would last an hour, or if we had more time, we were running into the council meeting. It would be, I threw it off of Dan just to see what he would think, but what would happen is we'd still operate as a chair. So Marva, you're the chair of the Budget and Finance. So we would basically have 3 separate committee meetings as a whole. Or 4, however many committees we have, 4. Each chair would run their section of the meeting. It would allow us all to participate rather than how we've done it in the past where, I got to stand out there and raise my hand to ask a question. And also cut down on the amount of time and cost. We did overrun our budget last year because we spent too much time repeating ourselves. And then sometimes if you don't participate, you cause more time, because when we come back to the meeting, we have to start over again. And we're not, it's not perfect, but it would help streamline things. It would also help us move forward faster, more efficiently. I know some people didn't like the idea, maybe didn't understand, but other cities our size do it. A lot of cities have, like we had one work meeting last term as well, where we talked about a lot of things, threw it back to Mr. Swackhammer, and we may not have known it at that time, but a lot of those things that we had from that work meeting, it changed other ordinances and it streamlined some things. So it causes less work for you. I mean, we do put in a lot of time. I know all the committee people have put in a lot of time. I know my dad, when he was here, he'd spend hours reading things, and he would have everything all written out, and he would come here and present it to two people, maybe one person in the gallery, and then he'd have to repeat himself when he came back to the meeting all over again. So streamline our meetings, streamline our processes. I just think it's a good idea. And, if it doesn't work, we can always change it back. I mean, we got the freedom to do that, but, we got to try new things. We got to keep moving forward. And I think this might be just a little thing to help us with time management. So that's all I have.
Other discussion?
Yeah, I got a question. So when you have a meeting, is it just like your meeting? Or is everybody the chairman to?
Well, yeah, I think that's just it. We could call our committee meetings all at once. We wouldn't have to have them on separate nights and overbook each other. But you would run your section of the meeting, but we would need 4 people to be here for a quorum, but we're not voting. So you and 3 other members would have to show up, or we couldn't have a quorum to even have it. Just like if we have a committee meeting, 2 members have to show up, or we can't have a meeting because we don't have a quorum. Mm-hmm. So you would run your meeting, and then, make your recommendations, and 4 people show up. Okay, we want to do this at council, and it would operate the same exact way. Just all of us would be here.
We would all be there?
A minimum of 4, because we'd have to have a quorum.
Okay, but what I'm asking again is, you're chair, I'm a chair, okay. So do we all do the meetings at the same time, or just one meeting?
Well, we would probably have one meeting, but we would have an agenda where, police, fire, and traffic would go first.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
You'd conduct your portion, get your input from everyone, and then we would move on to the next. But it would make more sense and take less time, and it would just be easier. I don't know how else to present it.
Mr. Swackhammer?
Yeah, when this was first brought up to me, I was wondering how it would work, but the more we've talked about it, this would have saved me a lot of rework that I had to do after having it repeated at a council meeting, after a committee meeting, and having to take it back and, wait 2 more weeks before we brought a finished product back. So I'm very much in favor of moving forward in this direction.
Other discussion? Mr. Rondeer?
Yeah, I'm in favor of this as well. I can remember, having previously gone through the committee meetings, and then you come back to council meeting, and we go through this whole thing again. We spend another hour talking about, and so to inform everybody else who wasn't at that meeting, what's going on. It makes total sense to me. I'm completely in favor of it.
Other discussion?
Could we bring this with our council rules? Because we're going to make an amendment to our council rules for the agenda order. Can we just bring it all at once to be more efficient? Do we have an aye and a nay vote for it though yet?
No, we haven't. We're going to take one now. Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion is carried. Anyone else have anything other?
Go ahead. I'd like to plan or schedule a planning commission meeting for next Monday, the 31st. And Ryan, you are my council representative.
So I decided to be the chair of this?
No,
Okay,
no,
good.
I'm just asking you if you can be here at 5. I know.
Could, I'll be
Monday-
here at 5.
You'll be here,
Mondays
so
are good.
Monday the 31st at 5 PM, right here, a planning committee. We've got some, we've got an ordinance we'd like to change regarding requirements for housing in the city, and it needs to go to the planning commission first. So we will discuss it in the planning commission.
5 o'clock.
They'll bring a recommendation, if so, to council, and we'll go from there. So, in the meantime, I will name the rest of the committee and schedule them here too. But Ryan was the one appointed by council, so just make that public, that's all. That's all I got, Dan.
Ms. Coon said she would get that out on the website for us for next week. Mr. Spikehammer, did you have something?
Yes. This afternoon, the Big Red Diamond Club had reached out to me. It's getting close to sign-up time again for the Little League program and the girls softball program. Last year, they had 4 sign-up dates, I believe. This year, they've got 6 total. They would like to know if there's a non-objection to using this room. It's Tuesday the 22nd, February 22nd, February 24th, both of those are 6 to 8 in the evening. February 26th, that's a Saturday from 10 till noon. Tuesday, March 1st, 6 to 8, and Thursday, March 3rd, 6 to 8, and then Saturday, the 5th, from 10 to 12. Last year, they had over 500 kids. I think that's why they've expanded it a couple more dates and stuff. And I expect they'll have close to that many, if not more, this year. They had other teams and cities in the area, Beaver, Oak Hill, Wellston, and stuff, wanting to join our league. And so it was a good program last year. Got a lot of good reviews, and they're just asking for a non-objection to use this room for those sign-ups.
I move to give them permission.
Second. Mr. Newkirk, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
The last item I have, on December 14th of 2020, we did a yes/no vote to disband the K-9 unit. If you'll remember, at that time, we didn't know where we were going to be with the income tax. We lost several officers once the notices had went out. One of them we lost was our K-9 officer, and the only way to dispose of the dog through that officer was to disband the K-9 unit. It was the right thing to do then, I don't doubt that, because these dogs are trained with the officers. We're looking now, 14 months later, we're rebuilding our police department. We budgeted and council approved the budget to put a K-9 back into the budget, go forward with that. So what I'm looking for now, again, that was done on a yes/no vote. I'd like the same to allow us to reinstate the K-9 unit. One thing that we are doing going forward is a minimum of life that the officer will maintain his status as a K-9 officer in conjunction with training with a new dog. And every time we get a new dog, that re-ups, and it's a 5-year. Most dogs are commanded around 1 to 1.5 years of age that are being trained. The useful life is usually between 6 and 7 years, as far as a working dog. And so that's why we put on that agreement that if you're selected as a K-9 officer and matched with a dog and go through the training, that you agree to stay in the program for 5 years. We've also outlined what the repayment plan would be on a percentage-wise based on what the city's, prorated over that 5-year period. And so I'm just asking again for a reinstatement consideration from council.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, sir.
So, like, you would, it would prorate, you would charge them back if they
Right,
could buy
they-
out, basically, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to reinstate the K-9,
Make that motion.
Ms. Colby? Is there a second? Mr. Newkirk? Discussion? Amongst council? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion is carried. The only other thing that I have, possibly before adjournment, is our next meeting is scheduled for February 14th. So that's Valentine's Day. So is that an issue for anyone on a holiday? But
even a real holiday?
Get us the
It's not. It's not.
You're gonna bring us all a box of chocolates, right?
Okay, so our next council meeting will be on February the 14th at 7 p.m. And also, Ms. Kuhn asked that, to remind you to sign this, the thin one,
Yeah,
and
the
return
thin
it to the mayor.
There they are. All that large.
Mr. Pete, or Mr. Bob?
Yes, this goes to the mayor and service director probably, I'm not sure. Is there any way that we could get the code enforcement officer to come at least once to one of our meetings and give a report as to what is going on? And maybe people may see something in their areas that, you know, we could help him out with giving him tips on this is going wrong or that's going wrong. Or, you know, this-
Everybody's got our number, Peter. We should wouldn't have those much.
well, I just wondered if he, you know, and, you know, we could report all the porches we see that have turned into garages and things like that. But that's all. I got one more thing too, if I
Go
could
ahead,
ask.
yes, sir.
I spoke to Ryan this evening about the service committee when they meet. There was a representative from Rumpke that come and spoke to me about the recycling program. And they wanted to know if they could come to, when Ryan has a meeting, if that is his committee is involved in that, they would like to come to a meeting and present their case with regards to possibly maybe getting a recycling program restarted.
Mr. President, could we wait till we get our rules adjusted for
Yeah.
committees?
Absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely.
but gladly.
Can I respond to,
Mr.
first
Evans?
about the code enforcement officer? Ray, I'm sure be happy to come.
I just-
Of course, you can call in the office and talk to him. We encourage any of you, if you see things around town that you don't think fits the current codes, call us. Call the mayor's office, call Mr. Schwackhammer's office and let us know. Some of you already do that, but you all are welcome to do that. Anytime you see things around town that don't look right, call us. If it's really bad, call Hinch. And
I spoke to Mr. Hinch about some things, and
Yeah.
he had them taken care of. I mean, immediately they were removed, so, I mean, and he comes to the meeting and he hears stuff, and if Mr. Lewis could come, you know, if he just came one meeting, you know, and just, you know, gave a report of some sort, something. I mean,
Yeah.
it's entirely up to you guys, just something my little mind was thinking about, so.
Ray would be more than happy to come.
sure he would.
It's going to extend the meeting about a half hour. But he'd be happy to come. He loves to talk about it. He loves what he's doing. He has a way about himself, very tactfully convincing people to do what we want him to do. And when he don't, he does invoke Mr. Hinch, Chief Hinch there, when needed. So I give you the numbers, the data in my report, the raw data, but regarding Rumpke coming to a committee meeting, certainly I wouldn't have any objection to that. It's up to your committee chairman.
All right, he said okay.
Okay.
Anything else to be brought before council? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Pop, second. Mr. Ondera, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Back to work.